Lymphatica Medical, we have Marco. Lymphatica is revolutionizing lymphedema treatment. So again, changing tacks.
Thank you.
You're welcome. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. I'm Marco Pisano. I'm the co-founder and director of Lymphatica MedTech, a company which aims at developing a breakthrough device for lymphedema patients. But first of all, what is lymphedema? Lymphedema is a swelling of the arm or of the legs due to a malfunction of the lymphatic system. There are a few things that you should keep in mind about lymphedema. First of all, it's not a rare disease. Only in the US, there are about 5 million patients suffering from this condition. And it's a chronic disease, so it doesn't go away. There are no cure for this condition. These patients have to pass through a series of massage, a series of compression, a cycle that they have to repeat every day. So the pain point for this patient is really the compression, the time they lose in the morning, in the evening to take care of the skin, to put on compression, to take it off. They say patients being compression-free will mean the world to me. And it's listening to those patients that we develop LymphoDrain, the first worldwide active implantable lymphatic bypass. So how does it work? It substitutes the function of the damaged lymphatic system, allowing the patient to be treated continuously without even noticing it. Let me show how it works. We have developed a small implantable micropump that we place under the skin. The implantable is a magnetic micropump, but we connect to a drainage catheter of proprietary design that we insert under the skin with a needle. We insert also an output catheter, always only under the skin with a needle. Then, with a wearable connected device, we can activate the pump and start the drainage, a uniform drainage from the limb, so that the lymph will be put out in the output region, always under the skin, near to lymphatic vessel that they will then reabsorb and redistribute the lymph in the body. Currently, we are running a 10-patient clinical trial in Lausanne, Switzerland. We have encouraging intermediate results that allow us to open a Series A round of 12 million that will allow us to run the pivotal clinical trials to reach FDA and CE mark in 2024. I talked about the Series A, which is open now, 12 million, which allow us to enter into pilot sales by 2025. 2025, we also plan a trade sale exit, trade sales to corporation with peripheral vascular business unit, which will allow to gain between 20x and 30x for the Series A investors. We have a multidisciplinary team with expert management expert and a very top-notch clinical advisory board, so the necessary team to reach our ambitious objective. So if you are interested to participate to our Series A investment, please contact me. Thank you. I'm open for questions.
So I think obviously lymphedema is very uncomfortable, and like you mentioned, the methods to treat it today are fairly low tech and fairly time consuming. So Indeed. Do you think that this is something that the patients are, or have you already heard the patients just going wow over this, or are they concerned about the invasiveness?
No, not at all. So the device is actually minimal invasive, as it's only under the skin, and currently there are proposition of surgery to treat lymphedema, which are highly invasive, very difficult to perform, and still patients are interested. Patients are really enthusiastic about our solution, and we keep receiving email from all over the world asking if they can use the technology right now. We'll still need a couple of your time.
Okay, and how often does it need to be activated?
So this will depend on the doctor that can prescribe the amount of time that the patient needs to be activated. Every lymphedema is different, so one patient could need 8 hours a day, one other patient may need 4 hours a day, depending on the gravity of their lymphedema.
And the device just stays in their appendage?
The device, implanted device stays there. The wearable device can be worn whenever the patient needs to use it. The wearable device is connected with the app and connected with the patient and with the doctor with proprietary applications that allows to control the functioning of the device, how well it's working, and give diagnostic data to the doctors.
And so it's sending the data to the doctors.
Exactly.
Ah, okay. So have you had good feedback from the doctors too about knowing their patient status?
Indeed. The doctor will have a weapon more in order to see also the compliance of their patient to the therapy and monitoring the development.
And compliance now, how good is that?
Compliance, well, it depends. Initially, normally not good. Depends on patients. Of course, if there is an effect of the compression, they better keep the compression on in order to not to have the lymphedema worsening. But yeah, it's a hard therapy right now nowadays. We can really improve the patient quality of life.
Fantastic. And so you're here, like everyone else, for a few more days. Who would be the best partner that you could possibly meet in Boston while you're here?
Well, for sure, interested investor we right now starting opening our Series A. We would like to close it in Q2 next year. So for sure, interested investor, first contact would be very useful, as well as partners at the lymphedema centers here in Boston, which are really advanced in treating their patient very well.
Great. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So next up we have InnoSpina and Gwenelle. They're simplifying spine surgery. So we're going to see another surgery opportunity.
Yes.
The floor is yours.
Thank you. Oh, good morning, everyone. I'm Gwenelle, co-founder from InnoSpina. We are a MedTech device company simplifying spine surgery. Now, most of us have or will suffer from some form of back pain throughout our life, and I'm sure you know somebody in your close family who is suffering from this hugely debilitating disease. And in the US, 1.6 million patients need to undergo surgery each year. One of the common procedures is called a spinal fusion. So spinal fusion consists of inserting screws and rods in the patient back, restoring the initial height between the vertebrae, and then immobilizing them. Now, to perform such complex surgery, the surgeon needs a lot of instruments and tools, as you can see here in the pictures. So it's a multiple incision procedure that translates also to a higher risk for the patient, and due to the invasiveness, also to a long recovery time. And on the surgeon side, he needs to have, it's a high learning curve to be able to perform such complex surgery. Now, the market is looking for a solution that is less invasive, simpler, and also faster. And we see in the current situation with this pandemic that outpatient care solutions have really a high need. And at InnoSpina, we have invented a new innovative procedure that drastically simplifies the surgical act. So our unique guiding instrument enables the surgeon to accurately position the implant in a minimally invasive way in less than 30 minutes. Plus, one key differentiation factor is that our surgical guiding tools are protecting the spinal cord at all time and only requires one single incision. This will translate to a huge numbers of benefit. First, for the surgeon, they'll be able to perform the surgery between 15 to 30 minutes. They'll be able to treat more patients during the day, and on the hospital side, will drastically reduce the operative room time. On the patient side, they will be able to discharge the same day, so going back home, in getting the surgery in the morning and going back home the same day. And finally, this translates to a huge reduction in costs. In terms of timeline, we have successfully secured 1.3 million in non-dilutive funding. We are developing two products that will be developed in parallel. So the fusion implants that will be delivered with our surgical guiding instruments. We'll finish the design freeze by the end of this year. And we are also developing a motion-preserving implant with embedded sensor that will be able to track and monitor the patient activities and to optimize the patient follow-up. For that, we're looking for 1.5 million at least in seed round, but we are more aiming to 2 to 3 million to further accelerate the product development and reach our next value inflection point. We're composed of a multidisciplinary team covering some ground, and we're currently looking to strengthen, especially in the business development side and also the go-to-market strategy. We have access to a large numbers of advisors and also to C-level spine network and C-executive, and also key opinion leader, mostly in Europe, but we're now looking to expand that in the US. And so if you're excited, I'm inviting you to join us on our journey to bring this new implants and innovative guiding instrument on the market, giving patients access to the care they need. And I welcome any question.
Great. Thank you. So it's yet another surgery that I hope I never have to have, but if I do, I'd hope it's with your device and your guidance system. So you have quite a large KOL board already in Europe, so maybe you can talk a little bit about what perspective or gaps that you need to fill from the US.
So yes, well, we are now looking to get access to US key opinion leaders as is our first market. Our first product, so the fusion implant, is still class 2 in the US compared to a class 3 in Europe. So we're now looking to go through a 510K in the FDA and gain traction among key opinion leaders in the US.
And those would be the surgeons?
Surgeon and also pain management, interventional pain management specialists, as we see, for instance, for the Superion, which was acquired by Boston Scientific in 2019, where this kind of surgery, as it's way easier, it's opened up the space to a larger number of interventional pain management specialists.
Yeah, and I might have missed it, but you mentioned that your solution would only take about 30 minutes to implant. What is the traditional?
So traditionally, if we look at the typically one level spine fusion procedure, it's between 45 to maybe 1.5 hours, depending on the level of training of the surgeon. And we already successfully conducted several preclinical trials on specimen that enables us to accurately deliver the implant between 15 to 30 minutes.
Fantastic. So, and then that obviously translates to more surgeries per day or a more rested surgeon.
Exactly. And the learning curve is way lower than the conventional procedures.
Ah, so this would replace?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Big
That's
ambitions.
our objective.
I like it. From the audience we have, how does this fit with regards to the awake TLIF and endoscopic spine surgery?
So the first implant is a complementary to fusion, so it's not a standalone device. So it's you can use it with TLIF intervention, and it can help you during the bone fusion between the vertebrae. With the traditional TLIF, you can have additional spine fixation during that process. Okay. And the second one is a motion preserving. So that's a standalone device. It's a class 3, so it will require PMA. And the predicate device are, for instance, the Coflex, invented by one of our co-founders, Dr. Samani, and also the Superion, which both of them are motion preserving, so standalone device as well.
Okay, and a question about the market. What percentage of spine fusion is done by pain management?
So that's a really good question. Currently, when we look at the Superion, for instance, Superion implant, they have in the last 4 years, if I'm not mistaken, between 20,000 intervention performed, so roughly 5K per year. We are aiming for 40K surgery after 4 years of market introduction, and depending on the adoption level by surgeon and pain management specialists, to increase that number further.
Do you have a feel for which one is more likely to adapt to a new technology?
Well, the first implant, will be mainly spine surgeons because it's complementary to fusion, and for our second product, will more likely to be with the pain management, interventional pain management specialist.
Great, but if either are on the line, please do get in touch because I think it's worthwhile to get feedback early and often.
Yes, absolutely.
Great. So I think that was the last of the questions from the audience. Thank you so much for your presentation, and please do get in touch to learn more about how to do spine surgeries in an easier way.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we're going to welcome to the stage from Gondola Medical. We have Francesco, and they are treating motion impairment due to neurological conditions.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Francesco. I'm co-founder and CEO of Gondola Medical Technologies. We are a medical device company targeting neurological patients, and more specifically, walking and balance impairment due to neurological disorders. We have 10 years since incorporation. We treated over the 10 years 3,500 patients, mainly with Parkinson's disease, but also stroke and other neurological disorders. And we are conducting a marketing test to see the response of the market, and we have sold about 600 devices to end users at an average selling price of $6,000 a piece. The conditions we treat are mainly Parkinson's disease, stroke, and cerebral palsy. We can say that this is a pandemic situation because numbers are increasing due to aging of population on one side and due to pollution. So it's a known unmet medical need. Walking impairment is definitely impacting, causing huge economic burden. And data say that it's causing about $200 billion a year of yearly recurring costs in Europe and US, definitely leading cause of disability in developed countries. So let me show you also what I mean when I talk about walking impairment. On the left-hand side, you see a patient with Parkinson's disease and DBS implant walking, and you see he is quite slow. On the right-hand side, you can see the same patient following our Gondola EMPS treatment. Here we see another patient with freezing of gait symptom, so Parkinson's disease and freezing of gait. You can see he's trying to go through the door on the left-hand side and his feet are not answering, and on the right-hand side you have seen him going through fast. And here we see another patient with no capability to move. On the right-hand side you see him after the treatment. So gait disorders are an unmet medical need in Parkinson's disease. No effective treatments available in intermediate and advanced stages of the condition. And also freezing of gait is definitely the most debilitating symptom in Parkinson's disease. We are talking about a population in US and Europe of about 1.5 million patients, which means a serviceable market for us of about $3 billion. And we are complementary to existing treatments like drugs and DBS, which is a medical device implanted in the brain. Our device delivers a non-invasive treatment, very fast, requires 2 minutes to be repeated about 2 to 3 times a week because benefits are immediate and last about 2 to 4 days following the treatment. So it can be delivered at home through the Gondola Medical device, and we also have a professional version. The device is CE marked in Europe. It's a FDA breakthrough device and is patented in US, Canada, Europe, China, Japan, and Israel. We do have a clear mechanism of action, so we deliver mechanical stimulation in the peripheries, in the feet, in specific areas of both feet, and thanks to these stimulations we are able to interact with the brain of patients, enhancing functional connectivity among brain areas involved in management of motion and body position. We already have 12 peer-reviewed publications, and we have a clear business model that goes hand in hand with the existing patient care way, patient path care way to existing Parkinson's disease patients. So we interact with the Parkinsonologist, who is the key influencer, the key prescriber of drugs and medications for Parkinson's patients, and the neurologist, the prescriber, then sends the patient to a nurse or a physiotherapy center where the patient will receive the Gondola device configured for him or her, and then use the device at home. So we are looking now for about $3 to $5 million. It's a pre-Series A. We want to finance FDA regulatory procedure, which is already ongoing, and we expect to have FDA approval by third quarter next year. We want to finance also the go-to-market strategy with a advisory company, strategic advisory company we have already engaged. And we want to run a marketing test in the US and run also strategic reimbursement landscape analysis and procedure for the US. We are 13 people. We have advisors on board. We have a scientific advisory board made of key opinion leaders at international level. And we are ready to go for the funding. In the US, we have 2 strategic collaborations, one with Mount Sinai Hospital in New York, the Department of Innovative Rehabilitation Technologies, and the other strategic collaboration is with American Parkinson's Disease Association. They have also supported our request for a breakthrough device designation with the FDA, and they are working with us to make it happen. Thank you very much for your attention. I'm available for any questions you might have for me. Thank you so much.
Great. To kick off the questions, I know that you've presented this before, and there's always been a question of, so is it electrical stimulation? What's happening inside the boot?
Thank you very much for your question. It's a mechanical stimulation, so it's non-invasive and safe, intrinsically safe. So it's mechanical, and we use receptors to create the stimuli that go to the brain in the body.
Fantastic. In the audience, they said it's very novel. Congratulations.
Thank you.
does a specific physical stimulation on the foot help with other symptoms of Parkinson's?
Well, there are some other symptoms that have shown to respond to our treatment, but indeed we mainly focus on walking and balance because those two symptoms are very much impacting on independence and quality of life. So we prefer to remain very focused on that, which will help the prescriber to understand and select the right patients that need our device.
And can you just talk briefly about the difference between the at-home device and the clinical device?
The at-home device is configured specifically for that patient so that he or she can use the device easily at home, no assistance required. The professional device instead is very flexible and can be easily and quickly adapted to the next patient in order to deliver the treatment to a multiplicity of patients for outpatient use.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for your presentation. Get in touch if you want to walk better after Parkinson's or any other neurological condition.
Thank you very much to all of you, and looking forward to reconnect.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
All right, next up we have Emovo Care. So this is Islin. And Emovo Care is bringing movement home for people with motor impairments. So we're moving up the body to the hand, correct?
Yes, we are.
All right.
Hello, my name is Islin Frebu, and I'm the co-founder and CEO of Emovo Care. And we want to enable more than 40 million hemiplegic stroke patients to live independently directly at home. In fact, half of stroke patients often struggle with regaining this hand function, which can be partly explained by the fact that the inpatient rehabilitation is really focusing on walking. And when these patients return home, therapy is unfortunately significantly reduced. This problem will only get worse as we actually see that this patient population is expected to increase by 30% in the next 30 years. So we at Emovo Care really try to help these patients regain hand movement directly at home by offering a device that can open and close the hand to support grasping in order to, for example, practice functional exercises as you see in this picture. Right now, we are trying to get a CE mark for our first hardware-based product next spring. And in parallel, we are trying to develop this device to be the first connected tool for hand rehabilitation at home by adding a complementary app to measure and track use and progress and to share the results with the providers, such as the physician. So our technology was developed at the world-leading University of EPFL. It's protected by 2 patent applications, and the competitive advantage of the device is that it really addresses the specific needs for these patients, such as opening the hand directly at home. We are targeting the 200,000 new patients every year that go through providers in key markets in the US and in Europe, which gives us a potential of 300 million. And it's very important to note that actually many of these markets are already reimbursing these devices, these type of devices, as an assisted device. So we've had a great year so far. We've had our first 5-digit sale to support a clinical trial, including 30 stroke patients. We certified our quality management system in June, and then we submitted our second patent in August. Now we are raising 1.5 million in order for us to obtain CE mark of this first product and to validate the market with the first 100 products next year. So who are we? The founders consist of myself and Luca Randazzo. Luca is our CEO and developed this device throughout his PhD because he has firsthand witnessed what hand impairment does through his sister who was born with cerebral palsy. So that's Emovo Care. If you want to learn more, feel free to reach out to me. I'm in the East Coast for the next 2 weeks, so I'm happy to meet online or in person. Thank you.
Thank you. So like our last presenter, we're trying to make people's quality of life much better. Can you talk a little bit about what their state of their hand, perhaps in Parkinson's, would be before using the device or after?
Yeah, so before, typically, they go through intensive rehabilitation, and very often, immediately, they have a problem to move their hand. But as it's not the focus of the early rehabilitation, they continue to have this problem often the hand will close a bit, which makes it very important to open the hand. And over time, they learn to compensate. So they just stop using it altogether. So with the device, we hope that we can really have a solution to provide intensive and repetitive movement at home so that they can recover this function.
And so would the device be something that was sold to the rehabilitation facility and then leased out, or is it something that would go to the consumer, the patient?
So we would like this device to be at home for the patients, and we are trying in the beginning to sell to private practices that can use them in the therapy sessions themselves, and also to provide devices to the patients that are interested in getting them. In the longer term, we're really trying to look into more the value-based insurances and insurances for tele-rehab devices, so that we can also lease these devices to the patients through a rehabilitation clinic.
So in theory, if you're doing something with telehealth, are they fairly easy for the patient to get onto their hands, or would they need assistance for that as well?
Yeah, so we have really focused in our development to make sure that these devices can be taken on and off completely just using one hand, and that the patients can very simply control them. So this is one of our key requirements when developing these devices.
Okay, and we had a comment come in from the audience. It said a Luna in San Francisco and Able in Madrid would be useful non-competitive CEOs to know. So there's an offer to make you an introduction if you're not already familiar with them. Keep that advice coming. We love when people are offering to make connections. And as Isla mentioned, she'll be in New York and Boston for the next few weeks. Is there any other stop on your tour?
Philadelphia. So Philadelphia, New York, and Boston.
Okay, so if you're in any of those three cities, please do get in touch. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
We have our final presenter, Nicholas. So Nicholas is here with Neurosoft Bioelectronics.
Thank you.
And they are making soft implantable microelectrodes for the brain.
Exactly. So thank you, Alicia, for the introduction, and good afternoon, everyone. My name is Nicholas, and I'm the CEO and co-founder of Neurosoft Bioelectronics. So severe tinnitus is a debilitating disorder that impacts a lot of people around the world, and there's a very subset of these patients, around 7 million in Europe and the US, who have this chronically. This is this constant ringing sensation that really has a huge impact in their daily lives. Even 7% of these patients attempt to commit suicide every year. And the worst part is that there's no treatment for tinnitus, only temporary help. People have access to headsets or hearing aids that cover up the noises with sound or music or other strategies, but that's pretty much it. And in the past 10 years, a lot of research has been done from the neuroscience perspective to look into tinnitus. And what has been found is that there is, in a lot of these cases, a hyperactivity of neurons near the auditory cortex, which is really located in the depth of one of these sulci, one of these folds at the surface of the brain, that is very hyperactive. And based on some of these clinical findings and some clinical research that has been done with neurosurgeons, at Neurosoft, we're proposing the first fully implantable brain-computer interface to treat tinnitus. And this device, which is a neuromodulation device that is inserted surgically into that location, can stimulate that region to suppress tinnitus. And the value proposition of Neurosoft is that we have made these electrodes in a very way that allows us to access this uniquely. We have very soft electrodes that are very flexible, so they can access this region, which is really in the depths of the sulcus, optimally, while folding without damaging any brain structures, and really providing the first implant that really can target that region that is not hard, that is not easy to access. And this is thanks to a technology that we've been developing for many years at EPFL in Switzerland that we have been developing over the past 8 years. We've tested it in multiple animal models in a lot of different contexts. And we have also a lot of IP and particular patents that are protecting a lot of these innovations behind these electrodes, which, as you could imagine, can be used for a lot of other neurological disorders, tinnitus being the main one we're focusing at the moment. So our timeline, these development timelines for active implantables are very long. Currently, we've been working on devices that are intended for less than 30 days to do our first proof of concept clinical study. And this is kind of our main milestone for our current round A of 13 million that we're currently looking for. We have soft commitments for around half of the amount, and we're currently looking for a lead investor in the US, as this is our primary market, really aiming for FDA approval over the upcoming years, as you can see on our timeline here. One exit strategy for us is an IPO, potentially, as other companies in our field and neural interfaces have done in the past, but we know there's opportunities for acquisitions along the way. Finally, the team, we have more than 25 years expertise combined from different co-founders on developing such devices. And we also have a world-class board of advisors that really span all the different aspects of these devices, from the hardware to the clinical application. In particular, Professor De Rieder, who is the pioneer in cortical neurostimulation for tinnitus, who just joined the board recently. So thank you very much for your attention, and I'm happy to answer any questions you would have.
Great. So for those of us who've never experienced tinnitus, can you give us a feel for how strong the ringing is? How much does it affect your day-to-day living?
So it depends. I think everyone has experienced it at one point. For example, after a loud concert, you get the idea. And for some patients, it's really at an entirely new level where it is very, very high and it's constant. I've never experienced it myself, but by talking to them, some of them really are, unfortunate to say that, but some are really ready to commit suicide, and they're not because of their families. So I think that gives you an idea of how severe it can be in the most severe cases.
And does it affect other things like sleep and awareness, maybe?
Exactly. So there's a lot of psychological burden. And I think it's very close. Some people have looked at it from the perspective of pain, like chronic back pain is kind of the same type of issues you would experience.
Okay. There is a question coming in, which I cannot see now because I've hit the wrong button. So if somebody, if Shaheen, if you want to jump in and ask that question out loud, that would be helpful. But I think in the meanwhile, so you mentioned that the first test is going to be with devices that are left in for 30 days and then removed. Are there other indications that you're thinking of where they would be left in for longer? Or is there any case where it might be permanent?
Yeah, so these devices are intended to be permanent. From a regulatory perspective, it's much easier to test them and show data that is these devices are safe for less than 30 days. And we're doing it in the context of epilepsy patients where they're already going through a surgical procedure where they would need some devices. So of course, we're going to target people who have both tinnitus and epilepsy and who already need an implant in that location. So that's kind of our strategy.
Great. Yeah. And Shaheen, I hear you trying to jump in with the question.
Indeed. The question was, is there a current surgical treatment for this pathology?
So surgically, not really. It's more for objective tinnitus where they're doing some bone work, but in that context, it's subjective tinnitus. And here there's different approaches that have been looked at that are invasive, which is mainly deep brain stimulation, but it's still at the research level. But on the market, I would say 90% of solutions are really non-invasive, and it's usually headphones or hearing aids.
Excellent. And the follow-up question is, how is the implant controlled?
So we're basically developing, so we're really specialized in the electrodes, and we're currently working with some partners looking into them in the US and in Europe to develop the active electronics. So the idea is to have a closed loop system. So it's both recording and stimulating. And there's different approaches that I'm happy to discuss more. And this is something we're going to be exploring in our first proof of concept next year, which is around 10-15 patients to exactly find the optimal parameters for stimulation to really suppress this optimally.
Thank you so much for your presentation. Please do get in touch with Nicholas if you are hearing a ringing in your ears that is untenable.
Thank you.
So that actually concludes our presentations for today. Thank you everyone who has come and provided your questions. We've really appreciated the audience interaction. I'm going to just take one moment to plug a couple other things that are coming up for Swissnex. For those of you who aren't familiar with all our programming, we will be doing something like this again in November for the other cohort of VentureLeaders, the BioTech cohort. So if you enjoyed your experience, please do join us again. We also have a number of other events that you can find at swissnex.org, many of which are involving the life sciences. So please feel free to get in touch with us if you're interested in learning more about what's happening in Switzerland, if you're looking for connections to Switzerland, or if you want to talk more to any of our presenters today.